Okay, Corey. Most people think hospitality is blank, but hospitality is really blank.
Okay. I would say most people think that hospitality is just like a general surface encounter, but hospitality is more of reading people and meeting people where they want to be met. So it's kind of a skill of, especially in coffee, like early in the morning, someone comes in, they're tired, they just need their fix. It's kind of your job to meet people where they want to be met. Or sometimes they come in and they're just like stoked on life and they just like want to chat you up. So that's kind of like, a lot of what we try to harp on is trying to read people, trying to figure out, get in this person's head. They want to just get in and out the door. They want to have a conversation about how their day is, whatever it is. And then using that, 30-second interaction until they get their coffee to get them out the door to either make their day or just kind of just be like a host, say what's up, whatever they need, and then kind of keep them moving on their way.
You own, lead, manage one of my favorite coffee shops,
Thanks,
Little
man.
Al, in Denver. I love going there. I love the feel. I think the coffee's so smooth. You gave me a bag the other day, and I'm still just holding on. Like I'm
Dude, run
drinking
through it.
it.
I'll
No,
give you
it's
more.
already, it's already gone. But I held on to it as long as I could.
Okay, right.
Because I was like, just a little. Don't make too much. Don't waste any of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you put hospitality before you see anyone because you're trying to make sure. I think what I hear you, and I know you do, is you want to. It feels like you want people to feel and be seen.
Totally.
It's like, hey, I've got 30 minutes, 30 seconds, 3 minutes. The range doesn't necessarily matter. It's if you're going to give me some time and you're going to have this transaction with us, we want to make sure that it's more than just that transaction.
Right.
We want to go beyond. Where does that come from? Because that doesn't make sense in the world that we live in.
Yeah, I think it just comes from just working in hospitality and being behind a counter, whether it was bartending, coffee. We have a saying that taste is a component of service. So, we often frequent the same bars, restaurants, because of the people that are there. So if you were to go to a coffee shop that has, maybe the best cup in town, but all the baristas suck, that cup of coffee is going to taste way worse than if you were to, go in and it's like a pretty good cup of coffee, but the service is outstanding. You're going to want to hang out longer. You're going to want to have conversations. People want to have more of a connection to where they're going than just having this final end product, I think that, and you see it a lot with, the way that restaurants are going. Like, there's only so many ways you can cook a Wagyu steak, but it's the service that comes along with it. It's, the connection that you're kind of having within the space that I think people identify with more. And so if you can make the coffee taste as good as it can behind the counter, and then also just having people that are just nice and, having a good day and create that sort of community, then those things go hand in hand. On the back end, we dial in as much as we can behind the counter for speed, efficiency, quality, taste. So that way we kind of free up our baristas to have deeper conversations with people. We've got more automation, with the machines that we're using that can stop the shot, right at the exact amount. We've got scales built into the machine. Whereas when I first started working in coffee, you used to have to throw, the switch to turn everything off, and you couldn't really be connected with everything. So that's just kind of the future of what we've kind of tried to help build into part of our hospitality. And yeah, I don't know. It's I could talk forever about baristas and how they've, kind of given coffee a bad rep. It's gotten better over the years, but that was our whole intentionality, is let's just be nice to people. Let's dial in all this stuff on the back end that you don't see. And then that way, by the time it gets to them, you're freed up to have more of a conversation, to be human. Your day's easier, so on and so forth.
Dude, okay, yesterday I had that exact thing happen to me in the positive. And someone did something really for the first time that I can remember. And I had a barista. I was meeting somebody kind of at their local spot, and I went there, and it was great. And it was, it was what it was. And the barista did something I've never seen a barista do. He came up to me and said, "So how is it? Like, how's your cappuccino?" And I was like,
you're like, uh-oh.
Like, whoa. I've never had a barista actually ask me how it was.
Yeah.
And I just kind of appreciated that. I was like, that's interesting and quite unique. And I encouraged him with it. I actually stopped him. I was like, "Hey, look, what's your name?" Introduced myself. "Great to meet you. Just so you know, I know you're going to be successful as an individual because of what you just did right there.
Totally.
You just came to me in a humble manner and asked me how it was.
Right.
And if there was something that you could do that was better." And it just blew me away. And I just wanted to encourage the guy for a second, because I was like, "Bro, I know you're going to win in life. This coffee shop deal may not be in game. Maybe it is. Maybe you own it. Doesn't matter to me. But I know you're going to do well if you keep this. Like what you just did, if you just keep that, yes."
Yeah, it shows that he cares,
Yes, and it's bigger than the removal of pride is so valuable.
Yeah.
It's just immensely valuable. Okay, so as you think about hospitality, you and I have had extensive conversations, a conversation about hospitality, and I've learned a lot from you about this. What makes you two sides of this coin? What makes you excited, and what really frustrates you? Maybe start with the negative first. What frustrates you in hospitality, and then if you're saying like this is a no-go, you can't stay on our team, you won't be able to make it.
Yeah.
What's the no-go? And then yes, just yes. I don't care if you're good at anything.
Right.
If you'll learn.
Yeah.
We'll teach you.
Yeah. Good question. I would say, starting with the negative. We were kind of talking about this earlier, but if someone comes in and they're looking for a job, we don't necessarily care that they have a stacked resume of, other coffee shops that they've worked at or whatever. It's more of a read on the person's characters. Is this person nice? Are they not going to be a jerk? Because you can't untrain that. So we'd almost rather have somebody that doesn't have experience, and they just come in willing to learn and be malleable, which leads into the positive, because that's the person that you're going to be standing next to all day. You're going to be talking with guests back and forth. This person's going to be working side by side with you. When we eventually do get crushed in a rush and we're super busy, that person, how they react for the rest of the day and how they carry themselves and show up for everybody else that they're working with is that's the biggest thing. And some people have it, and you can't unteach some people that are just laser down focus, only care about the coffee. I don't want to talk to the customer. I just want to sit here and pour 15 stack tulips or whatever. So that's probably the two that go hand in hand.
Okay, so is there but people can fake that.
Totally, yeah.
Okay, so people can fake that for a long time.
Yeah, especially early in the morning. You kind of have to, you got
Yeah. Well, I'm just even saying if they're trying to get a job, how do you?
Oh, for sure.
When do you, as the business owner or someone that's hiring, are there a set of questions you ask, or is it how long does it take to really get to know your employee?
Totally.
When do you know if they're a jerk or not? Or
yeah, you're right. There are definitely times where people can fake it and are good at that first initial interview, and then we do have systems that within the first 60 days we have a check-in where we kind of have this progress chat to see how they're liking it. Are they getting along with everybody? We have all these rules and standards from when we hire. So we have metrics where people can see how they're kind of landing within that. So we do have some standards where, you know, if we're hearing from the rest of the staff that this person, you know, isn't working out, or they're, you know, getting in fights with people or whatever, or they're absolutely crushing it, we now have like a 60-day sit down with them where we check in and we kind of go through all these metrics just to see where they're at. And then that kind of helps us be like, these are the things that are not being met. Let's work on that. And then let's check back in another 30 days and make sure that we're like hitting these things. So it does, like, you know, as small as we are with, you know, our 4 shops, we kind of do have to have some sort of like corporate structure in that way, right? Because most people want to know how they're doing. People want to know that they're, you know, either contributing or, you know, maybe it's not a good fit. And if it's not, that's fine. We have that conversation.
Okay. Most business owners are frustrated right now with the current generation. And you work a lot with that generation. Mm-hmm. Could you help the current business owners maybe understand the generation that is younger than
Sure.
us?
Yeah.
Help them understand. Help them be less frustrated. That's kind of a cool way to think about it, because I think that's something a skill that you have.
Yeah.
Because you understand them.
Totally.
You understand how they're thinking.
Yeah.
So speak to that if you don't mind.
Yeah, I think that like when I first started working in hospitality, I was like on like my 16th birthday, my stepdad drove me around, like doing job interviews, dropping me off at different places.
No way.
I swear to God.
Shout out to Dad.
And,
what's your dad's name?
My dad's name is Mike.
Okay. Shout out to Mike.
And so yeah, I immediately was just kind of like thrown into like, this is what you do. Go to school, you get off school, you go to work. This is, you know, I did this, so now you have to do this. It's kind of like a rite of passage thing. And so I just kind of really didn't know, you know, any other way. And I think that, you know, standards have changed over the past, you know, 20 years. Like, I'm going to be 40 soon. So it's, you know, I've been in hospitality.
Happy birthday. Happy early birthday.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Still here. I think that, you know, the jobs that I had growing up were a little more, I don't know if that you want to call it traumatic, but just the amount of work that you did, that you put in, it was just like you had dedicated yourself to work, and for better or for worse, but I think it kind of built a mentality of like, yeah, you just kind of have to suffer a little bit. And I don't think that that's necessarily healthy. I think like coming out of the past 5 years and, you know, after COVID and standards changing and minimum wages, you know, going up, thank God, because we live, you know, in a more expensive city. I think that people are more inclined to want higher standards for themselves. They want to be able to separate themselves from work. They want to have better standards of living, and we want that too. So it's like we're still trying to, you know, find that balance of like, all right, we're chipping in towards, you know, obviously paid time off, you know, vacation, you know, health benefits, all these things, trying to run our company kind of like a tech company. And so those things are like, we're still trying to like figure out how to navigate that. But yeah, I think that the younger generation just recognizes that, you know, they have a different standard of living and just want to leave more room for themselves, you know?
Okay. So this is huge. This is huge. I was just talking with a few of the people that were in here a few days ago, and you just said what I said. I would love for you to explain that a little bit more, because what you just said is so valuable, and I just want to just kind of put a little bit more of less of a period and more of an exclamation mark on it, because you just said I want to run a coffee shop more like a tech company. Can you describe what that means a little bit more?
Sure.
Because I said that, I've been saying that for the past few months.
Yep.
In different other industries and different other ways.
Right.
And I'm so fascinated by you saying that.
Yeah. So for a long time, like the standard in coffee has just been like this entry level, like barista position. And there's kind of just like a ceiling that you can hit. And I think that we've wanted to create a company where people have a future, and it's like being a barista just isn't just like some like frowned upon thing where like, oh, I can only do this for like a couple years. Like we want to make sure that we're providing a long-term path for success, whether it's working your way up into roasting, green buying, managing our shops. Like we're still small, we have 4 shops, but still trying to find a path of like how can we make sure that these people are sticking around longer, or at least have a path to like being more successful. So there's kind of more of an industry standard now, and I think we probably took this from Cat and Cloud, which there were some of the OGs in coffee there in California, but they've been running a podcast and talking about doing all these things for the baristas, sending them to Origin, chipping in for healthcare, all the normal benefits that like these tech companies do for people. And we were like, well, if they can do it, like we can do it too. And I think that that's helped, set a lot of these companies apart of like just having higher standards for everything across the board. And just seeing that kind of spill over into everything has been so worth it. But yeah, it's just like wanting to have a longer career in doing something that you love. Like, why not? Why can we not do that? Keeping the people happy is going to reflect, the customers coming in the door and people feeling like they've got, a more long-term place that they can build these relationships and have a better quality of life. So yeah, that's kind of simplifying.
Gosh, Corey, I love that. And let me just highlight something you said again, because I agree. There's a future here. And that's what you're creating. You're creating a future for them to be here.
Right.
To be with us. I don't exactly know how the future looks, but I do know that there is one if you want it.
Right.
And you're willing to invest in it, not just say it.
Right. Not
just have a value on a wall, but actually live it, have the value first, and then reveal what the value is, because it's who you are.
Totally. And even if they don't want to stick around with us for forever,
right,
we're happy to help, transition them into whatever else they want to do, be a reference later down the road.
And you support people long term.
Right.
Which makes people want to stay.
Right.
Which also reveals, because there's so much cost in turnover.
Right.
Well, guess what? You don't have. You have less turnover.
Totally.
And you're changing the game in coffee, because it's like, well, what if barista is the end goal? Mm-hmm. What's the best barista in the world look like? How do they speak? How do they talk? How do they think?
Right.
How do they prepare?
Mm-hmm.
Because what you've changed the game in coffee is your preparation game is unlike anyone else.
Right.
You prepare, you're using technology, you're using automation to shift how we prepare, because you're planning on and you're preparing for the person that walks in the door.
Totally. Yep. Yeah, that's it's kind of a whole, encompass thing. It's got to be.
It's so philosophical and practical at the same time.
Totally.
Where did you? Okay, obviously, Cat, and help me with the name of the company.
Cat and Cloud.
Cat and Cloud.
Yep.
They have a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
California. You've learned a lot from them. This is not the first time I've heard you talk about them. I think this is like the third time I've heard you even mention them. Mm-hmm. Which is those guys mean a lot to you. Mm-hmm. You learn a lot from them. And they've got a lot of content that is really good. I actually looked into them, and I was like, oh, they're super consistent.
Oh, yeah, they're crushing
huge following.
Yep.
Which is great. Okay, but you as an individual, as you were growing up, like, where did this philosophy? How did you gain this philosophy, maybe in your 20s or your 30s, to get you to this point? Because this didn't just happen overnight.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's just being in it. It's just like working in hospitality, knowing how it is, not having or feeling like there's like a sustainable future in it, and just wanting to be able to provide that for somebody else. It's just rewarding to have a company with, good company culture, creating the things that you want to create, and then being able to like give back to the people that are showing up and working for you. That's kind of the most rewarding part, you know, is being able to just like have this solid foundation underneath you. It kind of just ticks all the boxes, you know.
Is there somebody that modeled that for you?
Not really. It's
kind of built
it's
over
more-
time as
yeah,
you've
it's-
like
yeah,
loved
it's-
people and cared for people?
Yeah, it's more just like learning as you go, and it's not always knowing the exact thing that you want. It's learning from the things that you don't want. Like knowing that I've gone down this path and I know that this doesn't work, and I don't know the exact right answer, but I know that I don't want to do that again, you know.
I was trying to help somebody recently. They're like, I don't know what to do with my life. And I was like, okay, that's hard.
Right.
What don't you want to do?
Right.
Start there.
Yeah.
Then you can start writing things down. Because in some ways, we just need to start writing some things
Right.
down. So you don't want to do any of this. Okay, maybe those are real specific. Maybe get a little generic. You don't want to. These 5 are a bigger bucket of, I don't want to be in this type of industry.
Right.
Okay, great. You've just marked off a big industry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. You don't want to do this. You don't like this type of thing. You don't
Yeah.
like math.
Yeah.
You like reading. Okay, great. That's a different type of industry. This is more of that type of. And so it's like, beginning with what we don't helps us catch a better view of what we do, because it gets us started thinking, cutting out options.
Totally.
Sometimes we just need to cut out options.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we learn almost more from trauma than we do like the positive things, you know?
Yes.
Like your brain just cuts you off and you're like, I'm not doing that again. I know what I'm not doing is I'm staying away from that.
100%
I'm gonna go over
of what
here
I'm
and
not
I'm going to
doing.
try this thing instead.
Yes. Yeah, that's so funny, because I agree. It's like, there's this there was this statistic about being 35, that at the age of 35, you no longer, and I don't know if this is true, but I imagine it probably is, even just what you just said, you no longer really learn from success. You only really learn from failure, or the opposite of
Yeah,
success.
I believe it.
And I had a guy here the other day, we were talking about failure, and he was like, I actually don't believe in failure. It's just learning.
Yeah.
I'm like, sick.
Yeah. It's just a numbers game,
It's
you know?
And then it's only a matter of time before I get to where I really want to be.
Yeah.
If I keep going down the path,
Yeah.
if I keep showing up in these ways, if I keep showing up in these places, if I keep showing up and have the right conversation I need to have, maybe this person can't help me, but they can inspire me and encourage me.
Right.
So just do that thing.
Yep.
Just do that with them.
Well, when times are good, you're not thinking about like, you know, all the other things that you necessarily need to do. All that learning comes from when things get hard. You have to switch your brain around, and you start having to think about, you know, whatever else is on your plate, and our brains just are just checked out. When things are good, you're like, oh, this is great. I'm just gonna keep showing up, and then when it hits the fan, you're like, oh God. Remember the good old days.
Okay, yeah. And then, oh gosh, yeah. I'm not in when I was really comfortable. Yeah, or whatever, when everything was going good. Are there a certain amount of decisions that a person can make a day?
For sure. Like just like in general, just about
Yeah.
life.
I just see you make a ton of decisions. Small, medium, large.
Yeah, I think.
Have you ever found the cap?
No, I don't think there is a cap.
Okay, yeah.
I think that. I mean, there's always, you know, I think because of what's happened in the past, you know, decade, like going back, you know, everything that happened during COVID, and then backing up to that, like when I first started working, we had like the 2008 like housing crisis thing. So it's like every decade, it seems like there's some new thing that comes around, and all the stuff that's going on now with, you know, trade stuff, that I like am now always trying to think ahead of like, all right, if this thing happens, then like, what are we going to do? You know? And I think it's more or less like a skill to look at. You know, especially me and my partner, we once a week sit down, have a beer, and just kind of check in with each other, see where things are at. And we're now more well prepared to like deal with things because we've taken the time to do that, and to like leave space for those things when they do happen, that we're not like blindsided by anything. But in a more positive way, like, no, I try to treat it more of like opportunities in the day to day, like new things that we want to do for the company, whether it's, changing our branding, making new merch, our seasonal drinks. What can we do to build up, the staff or training or whatever it is, new coffees. There's always some sort of endless kind of outlet. But trying to treat it more of like as a positive thing of like trying to think ahead,
How do you, when you're thinking ahead, do you do that on your own, or do you do that on your own and with a team? And I would love to hear a little bit more about your team dynamics, because you're really trying to grow and you're changing the game.
Right.
And I don't know if you've said this, I can't remember, but have you talked about your brand and the Little Owl brand more like a boutique styled coffee? Have you?
Totally.
Okay, cool.
We haven't talked about that
Okay.
specifically, but yeah.
I'd love to talk more about like the brand in a second.
Yeah.
But as you think about future and building a team, how do you build a team and you think about opportunities?
Yeah. So, Mike and I, like I said, once a week we sit down, we kind of chat, about the broad spectrum of things. But we do have upper management that we meet with every couple of weeks, and kind of check in with them more on like the staff, basis kind of side and things that are front facing. So we do have like that team dynamic where we do try to dial that in with the staff, whether it's, training, new people coming in, maybe we just open a new shop, talking about things that they're seeing, things that are working, things that aren't. And then, some of like either the heavier stuff or the more fun, like brand building stuff, Mike and I kind of dial in first. So that way it's kind of hit a filter before we get to the staff to talk about stuff. And then we've got like, full staff meetings every other month or so. But yeah, that's kind of just like the team dynamic. And then, with our new account, the new hotel, we definitely have more check-ins with like their hospitality team and have more kind of overflow with them to do all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's a pretty, try to keep it structured a little bit for that.
How do you know if it's the right opportunity or not?
As far as like opening a new shop or
going this direction or taking this leap?
Yeah, that's a good question, because when you have a coffee shop, there are typically a lot of people that will hit you up when there's, a new building in town that's got retail below it or whatever it is. In Denver, it's always under construction, so there's endless amounts of buildings and apartments and retail and all this stuff. There's a few different boxes that we check right away. Obviously, like where is the location? Is there a lot of like foot traffic? Is it, somewhere near some sort of like main segue in Denver? What's the neighborhood like? Then it kind of gets into the more nitty gritty of, who is the landlord? Have they maybe had other projects in town? Do we meet them through a friend? Is this someone that like someone's vouching for? They've got a good relationship with them. I personally think that finding a good landlord that believes in what you're doing is like your biggest superpower as a tenant. Like getting into a relationship with this person. You're basically becoming married to this landlord. It's in their best interest that you survive. And if you're going to come in and build out this space, they don't want someone who's going to just change hands every 3 to 5 years. Like, it's in your best interest to lock down, some sort of good lease that makes sense for you in the long term. You've got, a decent amount of TI, tenant improvement, to come in and make the space your own. And then like, just like a human to human, relationship with this person. Like, is this person a good vibe? Like, does it look like they know what we're actually doing? Do they just want someone to come in and just like slap coffee on the window and just like call it good? Or do they actually like know who we are and have like taken the time to like get to know us, you know? So those are all super important things. But I'd probably say like 1 in 10 things actually work out. There's a lot of times where we'll get through the first couple phases of walking a space, trying to get the timeline of the build out, then start to get down into like what a lease looks like, what that, you know, the TI looks like, the percentage of rent that we're paying. And if it doesn't hit certain metrics for us, then we're out. And it's been hard because there's been some amazing spaces that we've said no to, but those things didn't get pushed across the line that we know just long term are not going to work. And that is a really hard thing. There's been a lot of friends, not necessarily here in Colorado, but friends in other states that have, you know, said yes to other leases that are punishing, and they're, you know, kind of getting worked now years later for it. But it's, you know, as a business owner, like you've got to be scrappy. You've got to find different ways to, you know, survive basically. If things aren't going the way that you thought that they were, maybe you moved into a neighborhood that's up and coming and developing and haven't had a lot of time to build a community there, and like you're the only thing, and it's just like quiet, or, you know, you're paying way too much in rent and can't feed all these other things that come into your business, and now your employees are upset. And again, it goes back to knowing the things that you don't want, and then, you know, hoping that those things foster better relationships and kind of build your business up. So,
and you're planning ahead of time,
right,
which is so valuable in business. Is like, hey, like, here's the type of deal that it must fit. If it doesn't at these stages, we can't do it and won't do it, because it doesn't set us up for a win.
Right.
And
that's one of the hardest things, man, because like it's, you walk into a space and you're like, oh, this is the dream spot. And it's like you know, your brain goes somewhere else, and then you're just like, the landlord's throwing stuff at you, and it's like, no, this doesn't work, but the space looks cool, so I don't know, maybe we can make it work. You like have to talk yourself out of it.
No, and you've got to like come back to the non-emotional decisions that we've got to remove, like our feels, because we're creatives.
Right.
We can create any space to be sick if we get the, you know, time, money, value added to it. It's like, oh man, this space, yes. Here, this location, yes. You know, it's like, but it's not good for everyone else.
Right.
And if it's not good for everyone else, it's also not good for me. At the end of
it's gonna be a headache. You know,
it's gonna be a headache at the end of the day, because that's one of the things that when you walk into a Little Owl location, you feel that the space is different. You feel that the people are different. You feel that the coffee hits different, because people don't always remember what you said or what you gave them, but they always remember how you made them feel.
Right.
And that influences what they remember that you said, and that influences what you gave them.
Totally.
So I want to talk about, I'd love to just kind of wrap our conversation up fully, going full brand Little Owl.
Sure.
Because it's so unique. It's so creative. And if you don't mind, maybe even, I don't know if you've even ever recorded this before, but I'd love to have the come up.
Yeah.
How did Little Owl start?
Sure.
When did it start? And then, you know, this is, what is Little Owl?
Sure.
And how did it come into existence?
Yeah,
I'd love to grab.
Yeah, I don't think I've actually talked about this probably out loud. So Little Owl started in 2013 with our original partner, Shauna. And Shauna had a background in real estate, and just got into specialty coffee. Just ended up kind of popping around to, you know, the handful of specialty coffee shops that we had in Denver. And back in the day, you know, specialty coffee was definitely more of like a snobby thing. I worked for, I will not say the name, but another shop back in the day that was just brutal towards its customers. We had like a bell that like some of the baristas would ring behind the counter when people would leave to go across the street to Starbucks if we like didn't have a drink that they wanted. And it was just like the worst experience. But back in the day, like there were just so many, you know, shops and baristas that were like that. Just people would come in and they just want to educate everybody on everything. And it was just like this like stuffy thing. And Shauna wanted to create a space where the baristas were nice, the space was pretty, hospitality was at the forefront. And so our original Blake Street location was the groundwork for that. And she got the name from a whiskey bar in Tokyo. So she used to travel to Tokyo, the bar, and the bar is called Owl Bar. And it's like a downstairs 12-seater speakeasy. The owner / bartender had a pet owl that like lived up in its own like little roost in the corner of the bar. And it was just like this really special place that every time she visited Tokyo, she just loved going there. And when the architects came back and she had picked out our Blake Street location, they were like, good news, bad news, you can only have 12 seats in here. Like that's the only amount of seats that you can have. And she's like, perfect, we'll call it Little Owl. So that's where the name comes from. But if you've ever been into that location, it's, 300 something square feet. It's tiny, but packs a punch. It's beautiful. It's got, really nice textures, walnut wood. And then you've got like us behind the counter, just like these tattooed kids listening to hip hop. Like you walk in and you think you're like, oh geez, like where am I? Like this is a really nice space. And then we're like, what's up, fam? Just like decompressing people right away. So we try to have that in like all of our spaces. We have, try to have these nice touches where people want to hang out, but we're like nice behind the bar. And yeah, that's just kind of our bread and butter, So that's where Little Owl started. I jumped on probably 6 months into the first location. Had been doing some consulting with other coffee shops and immediately started managing that location. And then fast forward a couple years later, wanted to split off with my now partner Mike and wanted to start our own thing. And so we had a conversation with Sean and we were like, hey, loved working here, love you, but I think it's time for us to like split off and do our own thing. And then she was like, hit the brakes. She's like, what if we start, we implement you guys, into becoming partners, and we grow the brand and we do our own thing and start roasting and doing all that. So that's what we did. We basically figured out a path forward where we all became equal ownership, started roasting for ourselves, and then the goal was to open, another 3 to 5 shops within 5 years. And so that's basically been the path that we've been down. So yeah, that's basically kind of the conception of everything into where it is now. And yeah, it's been awesome, man.
And now you have 4 shops.
4 shops, yep.
In the Denver area.
Yep.
In the Denver city. And I think as you walk into a space, as you meet the people behind the counter, and as you experience it, what do you want somebody to experience? Could you talk more about the brand of Little Owl?
Sure.
In the specialty coffee, because you're hinting at it, but you're not avoiding it. But I would love to maybe even talk at length about the brand.
Sure.
And because it's hilarious, some of the things that you've had to do just to even get it
totally
going, because you've had a lot of things not go well, and
right.
You're like, but we won't compromise
right
this area.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you don't mind, what is the brand that is Little Owl?
Yeah. The brand is, it's a space that we want people to feel like they've got a home away from home, that they can come in and they know the exact experience that they're going to get day in and day out, that they can come in and basically, be treated as one of our friends. We want a space where people can come in and bring their friends. We've had like people come in and fall in love in our coffee shops and like get proposed to like at one of the chairs, and we're like making drinks like, oh my God, this is happening right now. But we just want a space where it's just like it's a community. Like we want to feel like we're a part of the neighborhood, a part of people's lives, making friends, and obviously like serving good coffee. But that's kind of all on the front end. But we also have that dedication to the importers that we buy coffee from. We've had a lot of these relationships that we've been roasting, coffees from for over a decade, and having, like, I've got so many farmers' personal phone numbers where, like, we send selfies of each other. They're, like, on the farm working, and, their pallet has just landed at our warehouse, and they're asking how everything is going. And just, like, those connections on the back end also, like, we're fostering a community on the front end, but then we're also supporting these amazing people on the back end. It is about connecting those dots of, this is the coffee that, is back this year that you were stoked on last year. And now that it's back, we get to, give more money to this person to help build and, create more jobs back on their farm. And it's just a cool thing to have those two different types of community, and trying to figure out different ways to tell stories of these people, of where they're coming from, what they're doing, the hard work that they're putting in, and how it's ending up here, and how it's creating, this amazing cup of coffee that people can share or be stoked on. And we just get to kind of tell that in between, which is kind of my favorite part. So yeah, it's just relationships on both ends.
And why, and elaborate why it's your favorite part, because I feel that from you when you're talking about it. I know that's what your favorite part is.
Yeah.
Because and even if I could just say what I'm even sensing is the story, and knowing where it begins and who it begins with.
Totally.
And then you get to see it end in someone's hand. And you're a part of that whole process, which most coffee shops are not. They're a part of either the first half or the second half.
Right.
Or maybe not even the first half. They
Right.
just even do the first. They know of the first half. They know of it.
Yep.
But coffee and buying coffee from these farmers is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a whole process for sure. Like when you're the size of our company, it's hard to, like, not all of our offerings are all exactly direct farmer, but probably more than 50% of them are, because you have to buy out these entire plots of farmland to basically get all this coffee onto a shipping container, and it can be a lot to contract all of that out. But we found ways to split coffee, whether it's other roasters in Denver, or different people out of state, whatever it is. There's the relationships that you start with these people. You really get to see everything that they go through. For instance, we buy a bunch of coffee from Honduras, and a few years ago they had a hurricane that came through and washed out their villages, destroyed their roads. And over the past year or so, we've helped facilitate different ways for them to rebuild their bridges, get their crops back, because it destroyed a bunch of, like, where their food sources come from. So, like, there's a lot of different things that you grow up with these people, and you rely on each other, being in this chain with each other, that, like, when things happen in the world, you can fall back on each other, and that you're going to have their back and they're going to have yours. And having that relationship with someone who's thousands of miles away it's pretty powerful. It's very cool to have a relationship and have that much trust with somebody and their family and the communities that they have, of people that are working and growing and harvesting all this stuff around them. And then just having these long-term relationships is, like, one of the coolest things. Makes you feel like you've got, like, a secondary family, very far away.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, man, you make everything you do about people.
Totally.
And you do whatever it takes.
Yeah, you kind of have to. I mean, if you're just focused on the product, there's nothing special about it other than when that cup, ends and you put it back in the dish tray. Like, you've got to encompass everything around it. So that's it's a full circle thing.
If there's a coffee shop owner or a small business owner or someone that wants to be that.
Mm-hmm.
How would you encourage them to make it about the people and not necessarily always about the transaction?
Yeah, I think the answer is more simple than it probably seems. It's just being yourself, taking a genuine, interest in other people, and just allowing yourself to just be yourself. Coming in every day and, asking people questions about themselves, getting to know people, just being human, just not being so focused on the product to where you just go down a rabbit hole and you just don't care about anything else. I would say most people are looking more for a connection than anything else. The coffee is just kind of that binder in between.
Yeah, it's the means to the connection.
Right.
It's how we can make a connection over a cup.
Totally.
Or through one.
Right.
And I totally agree with you, and I think as you will not find satisfaction if you just make it about a product.
Right.
Because I love the idea of just be human.
Right. Yeah. Just
be a human. Guess what?
yourself.
A human is not.
Right.
A machine.
Yeah.
So don't act like one.
No. And it doesn't mean you have to come in and just be this bubbly person and be fake.
No.
If
Yeah.
you're not having a good day or whatever, there's so many different ways you can carry yourself. Hey, how's it going? It's I'm tired, but we're here. You know?
That's a part of being human.
Yeah, totally. But it's not like you just have to overextend yourself all the time. You can still just be who you are, and people will respect that, and just build relationships that way.
And what I also hear you saying, kind of in the middle of all this, is you're great at building relationships and partnerships and kind of coalitions, where it's hey, let's buy this pallet together at a cheaper rate because it's better quality. Mm-hmm. And then from that, your coffee shop can thrive and my coffee shop can thrive. Yep. And we can go further together, and we can go faster alone.
Exactly.
What do you want?
Yep.
You trying to stay in the game, or you just want to go fast?
Yep.
Because burnout happens if you go fast.
Totally.
And then you quit.
Yeah.
And then you lose.
Yeah.
And the point is to stay in the game.
Yeah.
To keep going.
Yeah.
And if we can keep going together, well, that's how we actually build community. And then we're finding fulfillment. And dude, you do that so good.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. And we haven't been around each other a ton, but it's I've been around you enough to know that you're putting relationships first.
Thank
you. And I actually can't thank you. I can't thank you enough for doing that.
Dude, I appreciate you, man.
Because
you're
just
taking compliments, but I appreciate.
You're welcome. You're a good light, man, and you're kind of, you're changing the game, and I think it's specialty coffee because you're making everything about it special.
Dude, thank you, man. I appreciate that. That's what makes it worth it at the end of the day, is just being around town, running into people that you've, met through work or whatever, and getting to have these conversations and getting, people stoked on stuff. It's it makes it all worth it for sure.
Come on.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Oh, you're so welcome. I know you got to go, and you got to go fix some machines, which is
part of it, dude.
It's a part of it. I'll be texting Corey, and he'll be like, I'm working on the roaster. He'll be like, I'm at this shop. I'm working on these.
We call it character building.
Character building. Let's just focus. We're doing everything.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're in Denver or if you're traveling to Denver, you're going to want to stop by Little Owl. All the locations. Best way to find all the locations is just...
Maps, Google, or Instagram. Most of our locations are in and around downtown.
Remind me of the Instagram handle real quick.
Little Owl Coffee.
Just Little Owl Coffee.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep. Got a new hotel account that we're stoked on. Populous. Looks like a big cheese grater from the outside, but a big beautiful building. Come
supposed to
out.
look like an aspen.
It is.
I learned that from somebody that toured me through the building, and that's a sick building. If you're looking to stay somewhere.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And you're wanting an experience, Populous.
Yeah, it is. It is a ridiculous building. Yeah, it's a cool space. It's a big art piece. So
the whole thing is art.
Yeah,
the whole thing is art.
Yep.
Dude, thank you again for all you do, for joining us today. I learned
Thanks
so
for having
much.
Me, dude. Appreciate you.
My team is just learning so much about hospitality from you, and I can't wait just for more, man.
Oh, we're gonna hang out
all
again,
the
dude.
all the
we're
things.
We're gonna go running.
Man.
We're gonna hang out.
The Corey Wall today, Little Owl Coffee. You guys have a great day. Grab you a cup of Joe, And when you go to Little Owl, I'm telling you, you're going to want to pick up a bag and just take it home and just make yourself
snuggle with it.
Yes, snuggle with it. I love that. See you guys later.